day, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another guide for the Twitch side of Warframe and everything of that nature. Today, we're going to be learning the Tridolons, everything that goes into a Tridolon setup, the basics, the meta, the things that you look at when you're new to hunting down the Tridolons. Now, if you don't know what the Eidolons are, there are three Eidolons which situate themselves on the plains of Eidolon at night time. The Hydrolysed, the Gauntlet, the Hydrolysed. Everything we're looking at now is the default. It's the stuff that works the best without any gimmicks. If you want to know about gimmicks, then there are guides out there for that, but we're looking at the bare bones basics. Now, Eidolons are 80% setup and 20% execution. It requires you to have a good setup and good weapons in order to be able to defeat them. The actual execution of Eidolons is really straightforward and easy. So, we have Twitch chat here with us to give on words of encouragement as we do this. So say hi, Twitch chat. Hi! Twitch chat will be asking questions, I'd assume, as we go through this. I'll answer any questions that they have, but I will be going through this in a summative fashion just to give you a general understanding as to how this works. So, to start with, your setup. One person in your team should be a healer. The go-to healer is Trinity or Oberon, both of which have certain advantages and disadvantages, but they're both good for their own reasons that I'll explain later. Then the other three people in your group should be one of the following 5 frames. These next 5 frames are the simplest and easiest to understand that give the best results. Rhino is the best for new players. He has good survivability, his buff is not the most powerful, but it is the most consistent, and it's super nice for a new player to use. You build in power strength to give yourself the biggest buff, and that then in turn gives your team a good buff as well. Then you're looking at Octavia. Octavia has a half-decent build, is probably the least useful out of the lot, just because her damage buff isn't the best, but she does give multi-shot and she does also give damage mitigation, and her roller is also really good for getting rid of the Hydrolysed, which you'll see later. Then you're looking at Volt. Volt has a really nice shield, which gives crit damage. You can then also bring him with Capacitance or Shot Trooper, and they are that in themselves is really useful for your team and will help you with synergizing with your operator, which I'll explain later. After that, you have Harrow. Harrow has probably the strongest of the buffs, but it's the least consistent. However, Harrow also does give status immunity, which is extremely useful for something, again, that I'll explain when we get into the fight. Other than that, then you have Chroma. Chroma is probably, looking at Chroma, Chroma is almost identical to Rhino, but Chroma is a lot more complicated, and although everything he does is better, you need an understanding of him before you use him. So if you want to do that, make sure you know how to use Chroma first. So those are your core frames, one healer, and then either Rhino, Harrow, Chroma, Volt, Octavia. Those are your core 5 frames. Hardrock, thank you for continuing your gifted sub, appreciate that. The reason you need these frames is because the Eidolons are completely immune to frame damage. So bringing a frame like Excalibur, Ember, Mag, anything that's very ability based is useless. You need to boost your damage. So, other than your buff frames, you need a good weapon. The weapons are the core part of this. And what I'm about to explain are the weapons without ribbons. There are 6 core weapons, but some things you need to be aware of. The Eidolons are completely immune to status. They're completely immune to abilities. The only thing they're weak to is radiation damage. They're not damaged by the status type, they're damaged by the damage type, so it's the radiation you're after. Now, the reason you want crit damage is because crit damage scales more promptly from buff damage, and it doesn't get quite as heavily mitigated from the Eidolon. So you wouldn't want to bring something like Bazza, Soma, anything that fires tiny little shots. That they just get mitigated so heavily that it's almost pointless bringing them. The main reason you want these big, chunky, single-shot weapons with really high base damage. Really high base damage and really high crit chance. There are 6 core weapons that people use the most. Lancer is considered the best because it has a default amount of electrical damage, which goes towards radiation damage. And then you've got things like Arcoplasmor, Vectus Prime, Euphona Prime, Opticore, what was that? Lancer, Opticore, Rubico, Arcoplasmor, Vector Prime, Euphona Prime. Those are your 6 core weapons. Whichever you have a Riven for, use the one you have a Riven with, because that will make the difference. There are certain gimmick weapons as well, but we're not going to look at those because these are the 6 weapons that even without a Riven are going to do well for you. So that's the fundamental part of setup. If you can get that down, then you have the general understanding of how to fight Eidolons. Actually, fighting the Eidolons is the simple part. So we're going to get out there now, and then we're going to start fighting the Eidolons. Alrighty, so the first thing you want to do when you get onto the plains of Eidolon is you want to find the Eidolon. Having Arcwing launchers here is extremely useful because it allows you to get around the plains of Eidolon very easily. So you're looking for these big pools of blue glowiness. The first Eidolon is always the Hydrolysed, and he will always spawn at night time from a pool of water around the plains of Eidolon. Could be any pool of water. So you want to mark him so your team knows where he is. Your first objective is to look for Eidolon Lures. Eidolon Lures spawn at Grineer camps. 2 will spawn at big camps. 1 will spawn at smaller camps. And now you need these Eidolon Lures if you're intending on capturing the Eidolon. And it's vital you capture the Eidolon to progress. If you don't capture them, you physically can't go beyond the initial terror list. So it's very important that you pay attention to where these Eidolon Lures are. Learn their spawn patterns, learn where they are, and then your initial objective is to charge them. A single Eidolon Lure needs to eat 3 Vombolists, and by eat I mean siphon them. Whenever a Vombolist comes near, they'll siphon the Vombolist and consume their energy. After consuming the energy of 3 Vombolists, they will become fully charged, and that in turn will allow them the requirements to capture the Eidolon. Each Eidolon has a requirement number of Eidolon Lures, whoopsie daisies, that will ask that you'll need in order to capture the Eidolon. And what the actual way you capture them is very simple. Each Eidolon has a set number of limbs. Now, each Eidolon Lure, once fully charged, can latch onto 2 limbs. The first Eidolon has 4 limbs, the second Eidolon has 6, and the third Eidolon has 6. So you'll need 2 Eidolon Lures for the first Eidolon, and 3 for the second 2. Once you have your Eidolon Lures, you're then going to go fight the Eidolon. The Eidolon does draw Vombolists to it, so you won't have too much of a problem trying to charge them. Now, the Eidolon initially is completely immune to your damage. So the way you get rid of his shields is by using your Operator. Now, it's important to note that the default Motamp you get for completing the Gara questline is absolutely fine for the Hydrolysed, but it is super unoptimal, and everything that is Eidolon related should be optimized. So it's very important to try to make sure that you bring something that is not the Motamp. Now, Quill sells the components to allow you to make more amps. Anything that is not the Motamp is good. However, anything that ends in the 2 and 3 in that orientation is good. Now, what that refers to, if you are looking for any reference, the 2 and the 3 is the Scaffold and the Brace. Generally speaking, you're looking for the Shraxian Scaffold with the Lauren Brace, and then anything in the Prism works wonders. This works because they are synergistic with other things we're going to explain in a bit. So you can have the 1-2-3, the 2-2-3, the 3-2-3, the 4-2-3. They all work fine. If you want a link to this, it'll be in the description of the video. Now, the only other way you can improve your operator damage is with the focus trees, or the... So Dr. Awkward asks, what about the 4 components? Are they any good? The 4 components are more of a gimmick. You can still use the 4-2-3 with great effect. However, if you use any of the 4 components in the last 2 components, then it's not exactly optimal. But again, they're still better than the default Motamp, which is what you're after, really. So the ways you can improve your operator damage, there's a few things you can do. The easiest way is with your focus tree. If you use the Madurai tree or the Unaru tree, they both have traits to them that improve damage. Yo, Zixels, what's up, dude? So, the Unaru tree gives you the Unaru Wisp. The Unaru Wisp is something that generates when you use your Void Blast, which is your E, and it generates a Void Wisp. The Void Wisp will give anyone who picks it up 100% bonus operator damage. This stacks, so you can then bring one person with Unaru Wisp, and then everyone else can bring the Madurai tree to have a Void Strike. Void Strike gives you bonus damage the longer you're crouched in operator mode. So this is what I'm currently using. So as you can see, if I crouch in operator mode, that little buff in the top right goes up. Other than that, you can bring the Arcanes that Quill sells. Quill sells 3 Arcanes, Virtuous Strike, Virtuous Shadow, and Virtuous Fury. Each one gives a certain damage perk, which is sort of down to personal preference, which one you like. I personally adore using Virtuous Strike because it deals more crit damage when you deal crit damage. but they all have some element that works well with others. You can use whichever one you feel comfortable with. Virtuous Strike works incredibly well if you have a Vault in the group. As I said earlier, Vault's shield increases the crit damage of your operator, and it's one of the only things that can do that. So more crit damage equals more crit damage. Now, beyond that, there are only one or two other things that will actually improve operator damage, one of which being Vault Shield, and I'm pretty sure that's it, actually. So you've got the Arcane's Vault Shield and your Focus Tree. Now, we've obviously ignored the elephant in the room. What about the Eidolon? What do you do with the Eidolon? So the objective for the capturing the Eidolon, you'll already notice that we've killed 3 of the limbs, and our Eidolon Lures, which are now fully charged, are latching onto its limbs. If you kill a limb with no fully charged Eidolon Lures around, the Eidolon will teleport away, and then you have to go find him again. So long as you have one fully charged Eidolon Lure, he won't teleport away, and you can then blast him down again. However, the main objective here is to kill each of the limbs, so he does this. He then goes into this mode where he'll cry like a little baby, and he'll start summoning Vombulists. Any Vombolist that then reaches him recharges 5 to 10% of his health. However, this is also a good opportunity to charge up the rest of your Eidolon Lures. Once he's done crying like a little baby about how unfair life is, he'll then get back up and you can kill him normally. At which point you need to double check to make sure you have the minimum required amount of Eidolon Lures, and then so long as each of the limbs are latched onto, he will get captured as opposed to dying. Now, as I said earlier, this is an 80% setup encounter. Fighting the Eidolons is incredibly simplistic and incredibly easy. Everything the Eidolons do comes down to not standing in the stupid. And there's a saying I go by. If it looks stupid, it's stupid. So don't stand in the stupid. And every single one of... Really? Okay, this is something I explained later. This is a shield recharge that I'll come across later. Cheeky breaky. So everything the Eidolons do can be avoided by crouching in operator mode. So you crouch in operator mode, you avoid every single bit of damage they do other than the physical damage. Now, what you're after when you capture the Eidolon is the Brilliant Eidolon Shard. If you kill him, you get the regular Eidolon Shard. If you capture, you get the Brilliant. The Brilliant Eidolon Shard is what is needed in order to summon the next Eidolon. If you don't get the Brilliant Eidolon Shard, you physically can't continue, which is why it is super important to capture the Eidolon. Once everyone in your group has picked up the Brilliant Eidolon Shard, you go to the fountain in the middle of the lake, which is over here. Once you're in the middle of the lake, each person puts their shard in the fountain, and that in turn will summon the next Eidolon. Alrighty, so once each of the people in the group have put their shard into the fountain, the next Eidolon will spawn, which is the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet is bigger, has more shields, more health, and much more damage output. So because he has an extra two limbs, you'll need 3 Eidolon Lures to capture him. Now, the fundamental part of the Gauntlet, he's a spike damage dealer. Everything he does is easy to avoid damage, but kills you in one hit if you get hit by it. The main abilities you'll watch out for are the beams of light that he summons, which emanate from the ground and work up. These beams of light are super easy to avoid, but if you get caught out by them, you will pretty much die. And they do deal... Yo, XEV298, thank you for following. They do deal a significant amount of damage to the Eidolon Lures as well, so you want to try and meander around them where possible. Now, the only other ability to watch out for in this guy is the big bubble, which I'll explain in a second. Get the buff up. You can see why buffs are so important now. That damage upgrade from my 3 is insane. So, the bubble is a big bubble. Shocker. If you're outside the big bubble, you can't shoot into the bubble, so it brings you in close. This in turn brings you close to his other abilities. The Eidolons have 2 shared abilities that all of them have. Now, the first one you'll notice, which we've already experienced, is the shield recharge. The shield recharge is when they glow blue, and they tether nearby Vombulists. When they do this, the Eidolon becomes immune to damage until the Vombulists die. When the Vombulists die, you'll then take down the shields and continue on your journey. However, the Eidolons do change one of their abilities ever so slightly when they do this. This guy, the Gauntlet, will cause its shield to spam over and over again, which is really, really annoying. And the Hydra does something similar, but I'll explain that when we get there. The other ability they all share, and this is the doozy, they all share a magnetic proc. The magnetic pulse emanates from the feet, and if you get hit by it, you lose your energy and you take a crap ton of damage. So it's really, really important that you watch out for that where possible. Now, you can immunize this in a couple of different ways. If you bring a Harrow or an Oberon, they have the ability of making you completely immune to this damage. Or, if you killed some Eidolons before, you can use Arcane Nullifier and also give yourself immunity that way. This sort of brings me into the conversation of healers. Now, Oberon and Trinity are both incredibly good at their own thing here. However, if you're new to Eidolons and you want to heal, I would more so recommend you bring Trinity. Trinity is incredibly simple and incredibly straightforward. There's no intrinsicness to her, you press her 4, and you heal and give damage mitigation. And if there are Vombalists around, you can use your 2 to give yourselves energy back as well, which is quite nice. However, Oberon has his own unique benefits. His healing ramps up slower, and it definitely isn't as instant. However, Oberon gives the status immunity, and he also gives radiation damage, which is extremely useful because that's obviously going to increase the time, lower the time it takes for you to kill the Eidolons. And fighting Eidolons is all about optimization, because if you don't kill the Eidolons by daytime, the second day hits, they will make a trajectory for the nearest spit of water, and then they'll disappear entirely. So the quicker you kill them, the less you have to worry. And the more likely you are to kill multiple sets of Eidolons in a night. However, it is entirely personal preference. It is entirely personal preference. Use what you are comfortable with, but I would definitely recommend if you're new, Trinity is better for new players. And that fundamentally is it for the execution and the setup. In terms of what these Eidolons actually drop, it's very unique loot. The main thing they drop are arcanes. The arcanes are essentially item enchantments which give you certain benefits. You've probably seen things like Arcane Energize before, Arcane Guardian, for example. Arcane Guardian is probably one of the more common ones you'll get, which, for example, when you get struck in combat, gives you an X% chance of getting an X amount of armor for a short period of time. So that's the general consensus of the Arcanes. The Hydrolysed, which is the last one, drops the rarest of the Arcanes, but the thing is they all sell for platinum, and each Arcane can be leveled up to level 3. Leveling up to level 3 will take 10 of the same Arcane, and each time you level it up, it takes more Arcanes. 10 will bring you to the max level, though. When you have a fully leveled Arcane as well, you also get an extra revive, and you can have 2 Arcanes on you any given time, meaning you can have 2 extra revives, which is really nice. Beyond that, they also drop Eidolon shards. Now, other than being used to summon the next Eidolon, they are also used for focus. You can use Brilliant Eidolon shards at your operator in your ship to unlock waybound points on your focus tree, but they are also used for trading in for extra focus. A regular Eidolon shard, I believe, trades in for 5,000, I think, and then a Brilliant Eidolon shard trades in for 25,000, and it doesn't go into your daily cap, so you can essentially farm infinite amounts of focus farming Eidolons. So that's the 6th limb. He's now going to cry like a baby. Other than that, every time you kill a limb, you get an exceptional sentient core, which trades for about 750 quill reputation. And if you capture an Eidolon, you get a flawless sentient core, which trades for about 1,250, I think. I might be mistaken about that, actually. Other than that, you then also get articulars occasionally if you capture them, which are little noggles. And when you capture the Hydrolysed, you get ribbon transmuters. The ribbon transmuters are a way of recycling unwanted ribbons, and I kind of understate how useful this is, because what it does is you place 4 unwanted ribbons into the ribbon transmuter, and then it gives you a new veiled ribbon based on what you put in. So if you put, for example, 3 rifle ribbons and a melee ribbon, you have a 75% chance at a rifle ribbon and 25% chance at a melee ribbon. But that's something for a different story. A different video, sorry. Now, they do occasionally drop rare mods here and there as well, but for the most part, this is just a really good way of maxing out your focus and getting a bit of platinum here and there. And the more optimized you are, the more likely you are to be able to capture multiple sets of Eidolons in a night. Now, something I've neglected to mention up until this point. Every time you capture an Eidolon, the Eidolon lures that are latched onto the Eidolon die. And the loot actually spawns from one of the ones that blows up. And there's a little gimmick you can do where you can, when the animation for the capture starts, you can actually run to the fountain and position your Eidolon lures at the fountain as it's getting captured, so that the loot then spawns at the fountain. Now, it's after the Gauntlet list, it's very advisable just to have a double check, just to make sure you have enough Eidolon lures, and if you don't, go and get some more. When an Eidolon lure dies, it then opens itself up to respawn at its original location. It takes about 2 minutes for them to respawn, but if you, by the time you get to the Gauntlet list, it's very likely that most of the Eidolon lures you picked up initially would have respawned. Each player can hold up to 8 Eidolon lures. Not that you would ever need that many, because then they'll start fighting over Vombalists, and it's like looking after children. They just don't know how much they want until they've got it. Alright, so now we have the Hydrolysed. This is where things get a little bit more hectic. Whereas the Gauntlet was a spike damage dealer, this guy deals a metric crap ton of damage, but it's spread out over a very large area. Whereas the Gauntlet was spike damage, this guy deals a lot of consistent damage that's hard to avoid. The biggest thing to watch out for here is the lightning. The lightning is almost unavoidable, and it targets players to hit the area of. The lightning will hit for 300 to 400 damage as a default. Your operator without arcanes or buffs only has 250 health, so you're gonna be getting knocked in and out of operator mode very frequently here. The only other major ability to watch out for here is the Vombalist Bloom. The Vombalist Bloom is a purple swirly vortex that appears like that one over there, and this causes Vombalists to become completely immune to damage. So if the Eidolon is getting close to shield recharging, because you can actually tell when the Eidolon will recharge, the longer he doesn't recharge for, the more likely he is to recharge. So you can sort of time out when he's likely to recharge. If you feel like he's going to recharge, get rid of the Bloom. Because if the Eidolon recharges his shields, and he's near a Vombalist Bloom, not only do you then have Vombalists that are immune to damage, but you then have an extra thing to kill. But, on top of that, as I said earlier, he changes an ability. One of the Vombalists will gain an Overshield, and this Overshield, I kid you not, is the most frustrating thing since Gary Glitter got convicted. You need to make sure that you kill this Vombalist with the Overshield as quickly as possible, because that thing is harder to kill than Michael Myers in Friday the 13th, I think it was. Either way, try to prevent that Eidolon, the Vombalist Bloom, from staying it too long. Don't let the Vombalist recharge. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. You're not really worrying about each of the Eidolon's abilities individually. You're worrying about how they work together. And this is something I haven't really mentioned so far. Every time the Eidolon loses 2 limbs, the Eidolon will gain more... the Eidolon's abilities come in quicker. You don't notice this very much on the Terror list or the Gauntlet list, but on the Hydro list you will most certainly notice that the lightning is hitting much more frequently, and there is much more of all of the crap going on around. Just for the sake of pragmatism, I will point out that his other abilities, the ones you'll notice, are the big balls of energy that appear in the sky, which will probably appear momentarily, and the Scorched Earth. This is the biggest example of don't stand in the stupid, because if you stand in the stupid, you're stupid, so don't stand in the stupid. So, because the abilities are going to start coming in quicker, it's really important that you get this guy down as quickly as possible, because as you can imagine, when the abilities start coming in super quickly, you're going to be at a state where it's going to be very hard for your healer to keep the Eidolon lures alive consistently. I mean, it's not difficult. I've just been corrected. Michael Myers was Halloween. Thank you, Steve Chops, for that one. But beyond that, like, this is not... You've probably taken as an example by this point, this is not hard. The actual execution is not difficult. Once you've killed a few Eidolons, the repetition is just easy. The difficulty is making sure your team has consistency in setup and synergy with each other. One of my go-to builds to look towards as a generalized setup, Harrow, Vault, Trinity, and then either a Chroma or a Rhino. That will give you a very optimal setup, and then the best weapons, in my opinion, for doing this, out of the ones I mentioned earlier, Rubico and Lanka are definitely the ones that are listed as my A-star weapons. These ones will give you guaranteed ability of farming quickly. But as I said, any weapon can be used on these, it's just some of them are definitely more optimal. And, you know, maybe you're only just going for a Terror list kill, maybe you're just going for a single set of Tridolons. use what you're comfortable with. Warframe is all about how you enjoy it, and if you enjoy going up against the Eidolon with a Mark 1 brat on, then so be it. You might not kill them, but hey, at least you feel cool while doing it. Alrighty, so we're getting towards the end of this encounter now. As you can sort of see, with only one limb remaining, the amount of crap going on around is absolutely insane. This is why it is very advisable to save your revives for this part of the encounter. If you spend your revives before this point, it's very hard to get people up here. Because the lightning is targeting the individual player, because there's so much bollocks going on around you, it becomes very difficult to safely revive people. So spending your revives that you have to save people time and potentially dying themselves is super useful. But I hope this guide has been useful for you. I hope you've had some use from this video. If you have, please leave a like, leave a comment down below as to things that I didn't mention that were good for new players. Bear in mind again, this is a new player guide. There are a lot of things that we've not mentioned about synergy between frames, certain things between different... I will not dab on this video. Refund him. There's certain things I've not mentioned between synergy. I've not gone into too much detail on the arcanes. If you really want to look into a lot more detail about Eidolon hunting, there are definitely a lot more in-depth guides out there for the more nitty-picky parts of the fight. But so long as you've got an understanding of the basics from this video, then that to me is a success. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, leave a comment down in the description in the video below. And pray that I get Arcane Energize out of this. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Hurrah! Pew pew! Pew 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 pew!